Very excited today to have Chana Kalmenson here with us. She is what I understand as one of the OG Moon Circle Rosh Chodesh facilitators. My sister Hindle actually was going on a Europe speaking tour and happened to be in England near your Chabad house and came for one of your circles. And she told me that it was the most beautiful Rosh Chodesh circle that she has ever been to. So that says a lot.
Thank you.
And I'm just really excited. We've been trying to do a month, one of the months, and this one worked out. And Adar is so exciting and fun. And I'm just so excited to have you here. So, Hannah, if you can introduce yourself to my listeners, a little background about you, how long you've been doing Rosh Chodesh, why this.
My name is Chana Kalmenson. I live in central London. I have a Chabad house with my husband. You may know Rabbi Mendel Kalmenson. He's written some nice books. And we moved here 13 years ago. And it's like community building work, it's Jewish activities, it's celebrations, it's all the usual stuff. As far as the Rosh Chodesh circles, specifically the way I love doing them is something that kind of emerged over like from multiple places. First of all, I've always felt like a very spiritual side of myself. It's always something that I was very drawn to, the spirituality, specifically in Hasidic mysticism. And I was noticing themes like the emphasis on time and the emphasis on like the energy in time, and how every time there was like a particular date on the calendar or a holiday or a Jewish festival, there was like so much meaning and there was particular like themes associated with that thing. And I was noticing how every day really on the Jewish calendar has like an enormous depth. And my spiritual side really drew me into understanding what this has to do with me. Like, how can I connect to this? At the same time, I was living here. I'm the kind of person I don't love doing like typical social events. I don't know, throw a party and just make it a Jewish theme or invite women to do a craft together. I felt like people can do a lot of social activities themselves. Like I wanted to offer something that was also meaningful to me personally, that I really resonated. And I had seen women's circles, very spiritual women's circles with people that I met in London that weren't Jewish or weren't doing kind of anything centered around Jewish themes, but noticing that there was a certain beauty and a certain synergy and a certain sisterhood that they were managing to create with these circles. And it's something I got very intrigued by. Now, we have our own tradition in Chabad of this idea of a gathering of people, a gathering of brotherhood or sisterhood, and it's called a Farbrengen. And I was seeing the similarities of what I understood of Farbrengen to be with this theme of women's circles. And it struck me that maybe a woman's circle is a feminine Farbrengen. Maybe this is an opportunity to like create the context that Hasidic tradition has for gathering people to connect with each other on a really soul level and speak about deep and meaningful and spiritual things and like create the context. Like in a classic Hasidic Farbrengen, there might be alcohol, and the purpose of drinking alcohol together is to open people up, to get people into a space where they're less inhibited, they're not show up with a certain persona, but they're allowing themselves to open up more and to be more real. And this is what kind of really struck me. I'm like, I want to create a context where we can invite a group of women to sit together and get really real with each other and observing these circles from far. I never actually attended them. A very dear friend of mine was like running all these spiritual stuff. And I was like learning from observing her, but I never actually attended them. And I'm like, I think I want to do this. And Rosh Chodesh is a Jewish celebration that's very connected to women, celebrating the new moon. And so it was like this convergence of really leaning into the energy of time, using Rosh Chodesh as an opportunity to like make it real, to actually celebrate and gather women in the spirit of a Farbrengen, that my circles were born. I started my circles I think it was a little over 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I just decided I was inspired by my friends' circles in the sense that I invited people to sit on the floor because I wanted them to come into a space where they were like engaging differently than they normally would. not a typical women's brunch, not a dinner, not something that you're
Not
sitting
even
around,
a class at a
not a
table.
class, no
Right.
lecture. It's a circle of people, and I invite people to take off their shoes. It's all candlelit. It's very beautiful. And there's very gentle music playing in the background so that the moment you walk in, you already get like every one of your senses gets the message. Something's different here in a very kind of beautiful and peaceful and comforting way.
That is
And
so beautiful. I hope to come to England at some point and experience your circles. And I love that you touched upon that all of your senses. I do women's retreat, and one of the things that I'm very particular about is that I'm hitting all the senses in restfulness and beauty. So I completely understand the like desire to touch upon all these different senses. That's so beautiful. And you describe it so beautifully about the circle and the gathering and the Farbrengen, and it's for women. So you've been doing it about 2 years, which means you're well versed in the themes of the month because you keep that's the beauty of Judaism, and is that everything's circular and we learn things again. And it's not a circle, it's a spiral. We go deeper and deeper. So I'm really excited to talk to you about Adar because I'm new to the circles. I just started, that's not true. I started Rosh Chodesh circles in Nashville, but I didn't really study it. It was like we all brought something and shared. So I'd spend 5 minutes learning. And this year I decided to go one step further and started learning on deeper levels. But I feel like every time I get into a month, I'm like halfway through the books, and then and then it's Rosh Chodesh, and I'm like, what's the other half of the book? What am I missing? So this is the same. I felt the same way yesterday at our Rosh Chodesh circle that I only touched on bits of it, even though we had the most beautiful, heart-opening conversations. So if you can get started, whatever really comes to mind, whatever it is about Adar that like lights you up and gets you excited, whether it's the letter or the sense or the ideas or Purim, why don't you go ahead and get started and I can ask you questions as we go along.
we can explore it together.
Yes.
Explore it together. Yeah. Like you mentioned, like we go through this again and again, and there's so many layers and there's so many themes. And I also feel like we're different every time we encounter these things. So like the things that resonate with us one year hit differently a different year. And there's always so much opportunity. So it's
Yeah.
very so Adar. Oh my God.
One of the most fun months. I feel like everybody waits for
It is.
Adar. The
It
kids, the
is.
adults, exciting.
And it's really the zenith of the Jewish calendar.
Mm,
It's the last month, and it's the last month in a cycle that I think sometimes we don't realize what's actually happening from the first month of the year until the last month of the year. So Nisan is the first month, and the festivals, right? So Pesach, we celebrate Passover in Nisan, and it's the beginning of our journey. It's a journey that lasts the entire 12 months of the lunar calendar, and then it ends with Adar, and that's like the arrival. That's where
mm,
we're reaching for. Adar is very much about maturity. Nisan is like birth, is like we're just coming into being, and the rest of the year we go through all the different processes that we need to become who we are, to grow into our own. And Adar is all about maturity, is all about an arrival. And that's why it's like the peak joy of the year. It's like you accomplished what you set out to. You've come home to your own soul. It's very interesting. What I find fascinating about the idea of joy is that Kabbalistically, joy is not an emotion within the seven emotions of the Sphirot, right? You have like love and discipline and compassion and endurance, but
mm.
joy doesn't feature there. And I think it's because joy is not an emotion as such, it's the natural state of the soul. It's what we are when we are in our truth and total alignment. Our natural state is a state of joy.
That's beautiful. And
Yeah. So
feels
it's
very true.
what's really interesting about Adar also is even when you look at the high point of Adar, so the holiday of Purim is like what really contains like the full emphasis of what what Adar is. The story, while it's an amazing story of liberation and redemption, the process of the story is a very difficult one.
Yeah.
It's scary, it's painful. There's like a huge amount of fear and a huge amount of challenge. And I feel like it tells me that the joy that we're trying to achieve in Adar is not the joy of everything's perfect. So just it's can you bring yourself to a certain depth within you where you are in such an alignment that it doesn't matter what is happening. That
Mm.
there's a lot of noise outside and there's a lot of chaos. And I'm like, I know who I am. I know that I am an expression of God. I know that Hashem has me. Like, I'm not alone in this. I'm being carried through whatever it is. And I'm going to center myself in the depth of that knowing, which naturally leads me to be able to live in a state of joy. And
That's so beautiful. Wow. That's so beautiful. Okay, sorry, continue.
yeah, no. So I feel like all the themes, when you start looking at it that way, all the themes of Adar, they all tie into this, right? Like,
Yeah.
first of all, the astrological sign of Adar is Pisces, is fish. And in Jewish tradition, what that's all about is about living in a space that's concealed. Like when you look at the sea from the outside,
Yeah.
from our perspective, we're land creatures. We look at the sea and you just see this huge blanket, basically, of water.
Mm.
But if you ever went snorkeling or scuba diving, you discover that there is like an entire magnificent world out there just underneath the surface. But as soon as you get to the surface, you have
It's
no
gone.
idea. It's completely inaccessible. And it's this world where we're being confronted with the reality that what's really true is just beneath the surface.
Mm.
We look at things from a surface point of view, we cannot see what's going on. We have no idea. But a fish experiences reality under the sea as it is. It swims around, it sees what's going on, it sees who else is there, it sees the magnificent creatures, it sees the incredible diversity, like just the richness and the vastness and the wealth. And that's our experience of living. Like we are surface animals. We don't see what's going on underneath.
Mm.
And in Adar, it's that maturity again, where we've come to a place where we're able to identify as a fish, where I'm able to experience my life from under the surface, where I'm able to really get the fact that there's so much more than what meets the eye, and I can live with that. And there's this incredible game that happens. There's a huge sense of play in Adar. The letter of the month is Kuf, and Kuf literally means a monkey. And it reflects what we do to celebrate Purim, right? On Purim, we dress up, we
Yeah.
masquerade, we put on masks, and we act really silly. There's a lot of like silliness and play that happens in this month. And I feel like it's all about confronting the reality that what we take so seriously, what we think is really going on, it's not true.
Mm.
It's okay to not get so caught up with every little thing that's in front of me and to like recognize there's so much beyond the surface. And I'm going to allow myself to play with that, to hold my life with a certain lightness, to hold what normally is an everyday challenge, like the difficulties, the real horrible things that are going on in the world
Yeah.
that are legitimately terrible,
Yeah.
terrifying, dark, painful, scary, and hold them with a lightness where I'm like, this is not the whole story. And I'm going to play with that.
That's really interesting because I feel like a lot of times when we talk about this idea of play, it's what's your reality and like playing around it. And there's something beautiful of that. Of is this a truth? Is this the reality? Is this what's really going on? And if you bring in the fish and like the underneath world of the fish and what's going on, it's what if it's not? Even just like playing with those ideas in the mind and oh, that's not true. But the way you said it is, yeah, there's a lot of darkness and fear and frustration. And if you look at it right next to the story of Purim, the people of Shushan, the Jews of that time, went through the same thing we're going through right now. Like, we know the end of the story, and it was awesome and great. But
Right.
while they were experiencing it, they must have felt what's the way we're feeling now, where it's like there's so much darkness and there's so much like, how are people believing these lies? Like, how did Ahasuerus believe a lie of this man who's the Jews are awful, I want to kill them, and he's okay. And so there's this parallel that we can experience. And if we're experiencing that parallel, then we also must experience the parallel of what ends up happening and the joy that comes with it.
Right. Exactly. And that literally leads straight into another massive theme in this month where we have for Purim, there is a theme of Vinahapuchu.
Mm.
So everything gets overturned, right? So we're
Yeah.
playing with this like question of what is the real reality, and then everything completely flips. So like allowing for the total surprise and
Yeah.
like who knows? And it goes even further. There's this theme of destroying the name of Amalek,
Mm-hmm.
right? When we listen to the Megillah on Purim, we're busy like doing our graggers every single time they say Haman's name, and it's all about destroying the name of Amalek. And it's definitely fun, and it's a really
Yeah.
cute tradition, but it actually is incredibly meaningful because it's Amalek in our tradition. Haman is not the first person from Amalek who tried to destroy us. Amalek was the first nation who attacked the Jewish people after they were liberated from Egypt with tremendous miracles in Revelation. And everybody was so terrified of the Jewish people. And Amalek were the first ones to be like, they're not so cool. They're not that scary. And Kabbalistically, what Amalek represents is this doubt that comes in, question. Maybe it's not as amazing as you think it is. Maybe you're not as pure as you think you are. Maybe God doesn't really love you. Maybe what you're doing is not good enough. Maybe a million doubts.
Mm.
Maybe the end is not going to be a good end. Like every doubt that we have, whether it's doubting ourselves, doubting God, doubting the world, doubting like these kind of unreasonable doubts that eat us up, right? That's the enemy that we're fighting against, that we're struggling with on Purim. And in us, we have the power to overcome that doubt. And I heard something incredible from Rav Doper Pinson. He was sharing that the opposite of doubt is not certainty, it is holy doubt. It's turning that dangerous doubt into wonder. What if? Who knows? Like everything could just flip.
Wow.
And you,
Holy
again,
doubt. What an interesting word. Can you explain that a little bit more? What does he mean by holy doubt?
so it's the sense that I don't know, right?
Hmm.
I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how this is going to work out. Like, this is something we're living with very
Yeah.
present, right? What's going to happen? What is happening in this world? There are so many crazy players. There's so many like crazy things going on all at once. And it's so destabilizing.
Yeah.
And it's very easy for us to fall into our own fears of, oh my God, what's going to happen? This one's doing this and that one's doing that. And you get stuck on, oh, this person's a really good player. Like, we're so lucky he's in the game because now we're going to be okay. Really? But then he
Right.
doesn't, that's like a little, I'm not sure anymore. And then
Hmm.
what, in 4 years, he's not here anymore.
We
Like, what?
literally just talked about that yesterday.
There's so much doubt, right? And using that energy, but flipping
Mm.
completely to say, it's true. We have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. But instead of getting fixated on stuff and then getting afraid of how it might work out, like allowing this full surrender of God knows and I don't know anything.
Mm.
And who knows what could happen? In the same way it completely flipped on Purim, like this can completely flip in
Yeah.
ways that we can't even begin to anticipate. So, can I shift my doubt into this place of holy doubt, which to me sounds like wonder? Oh, can you imagine? We can't even begin to imagine how this might
I
evolve, like
know.
this might unfold, what kind of amazing things could happen. I feel like we had a moment of that when the beepers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's, by the
It
way,
was
that's
like
a really
suddenly
good,
everyone's like, what? And what was so interesting to me was there was a huge amount of laughter,
yes,
right? Like when we heard what happened, and we
quite
don't,
hilarious and
and
joyful.
I think it's important. We're not celebrating someone's downfall. The
Yes.
laughter was just like this. surprise and
I
this
think
wonder.
it was also a release. I think it was like so much tension for all of us for so long. And then it's not only was there this victory in a sense, like it was this tremendous victory, but it was completely turned on its head in a way that was funny.
Yeah,
And there
yeah,
was joy
yeah.
and wonder.
Yeah. So there's like this sense of, oh, like what a wonderful surprise. There
Mm.
are things that can happen. So let's
Yeah.
channel that energy.
That's
That's
really
what
cool.
it's
I
about.
also think what you're touching upon, I'm going to reflect on, is that I think we think so strongly that our fight is with all the people out there. Like our fight, like the Oscars just happened. What a disaster. All the people, they're cowards. No one's wearing yellow pins. No one's talking about Israel. Half the people who won awards was for Holocaust movies, wouldn't mention Jews, wouldn't mention anti Semitism. There was so much darkness. And then the No Other Land movie documentary that won, which was propaganda video essentially about Palestinians. The name is stolen from an Israeli poem about Israel. There's so much false and lies and all of that. And I think we feel like we're fighting those people, social media warriors posting videos about the Oscars and this one and that one, and they said, and this one, and they said. And I think the war is a malik in the sense of like it's what it's sounding like is what you're saying is that the war is our self doubt. All of that is doubt that they're going to get the upper hand.
It's an
And we
illusion.
have forgotten Hashem's really in the controlling all. It is an illusion that
Mhm.
like we have to fight them when really we have to fight ourselves back to believing in the holy doubt, right? We have to be like, I see what's happening out here, but any second, the beepers can go on Lebanon. And by the way, that whole thing changed that section of the Middle East. It took down Syria, it took down Lebanon in ways we were all shocked.
Everyone was shocked. Even the people, even the players themselves were shocked.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's not buying into the illusion. I think that's like
Mm.
really the challenge, especially like
Really
this
hard.
Adar and last year Adar. We're like, oh my God, the theme is joy. How do you do joy after we just buried our Bebas family?
I
Like, I can't even say their
I
names
know.
without joy. And
I thought about that. That was one of the like biggest stark differences is that we buried the Bibas on Wednesday and Thursday was Rosh Chodesh. And we are told you have to have joy in this month. You
right,
have to. There's no choices. This is one of the things Hashem demands.
right.
And it's like, what a contrast
Yeah.
that we're burying. And if we ever thought Jews weren't a family, burying the Bibas people and the way that we all felt around the world about it. And I was talking about this yesterday. I was like, Jordan, never met him, never met his family, and he feels like my brother. And it's like, how do we force ourselves to get in this joy? Maybe it's that. Maybe it's not feeding into the illusion that's a lie.
I think that's what we are being called to do. I think not getting caught up with the surface level of things, being able to recognize that there is a truth of reality that is under the surface, that's deeper than what we can see. And we need to remember that is what's really going on. And we need to play with it. And we need to lean into our holy doubt. And we need to remember that joy is not necessarily a celebration of things that are good. It's the deep sense that we get when we are in alignment with our truth, which is knowing I'm connected to God. God is running this show. There is no other power. There
Mm,
is no other power, right? Mordecai did not bow, would not bow to a person carrying an idol around their neck because there is zero acknowledgement of
mm.
anything having kind of power in this world besides for God Himself. Can we bring ourselves back to that?
And do you think bringing ourselves back is a constant reminder of Hashem, God, running this world? And every time the fear kind of comes in, it's wait, it's
Yeah.
like really taking that pause
Yeah.
and being like, no.
And yeah, and I feel like what we're taught when we explore the energy of every month is that this month is giving
Mm,
us energy to
mm,
into these ideas. That's the frequency of this period of time right now. And by exploring it, talking about it, or bringing about it, really allowing myself to feel into it, meditating on it, circling with it, I am bringing myself into the frequency that is there. Every month is a gift offering to us of the particular themes of that month and of the particular energies of that yontif, right? Of that holiday. And it's giving us the opportunity to like really draw. I think it was the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, who said that every holiday is like a stop. A train is like traveling, and every holiday is like another stop where that at that little town there's a market that specializes in particular goods, and like we travel through the year like on this train, and every holiday we get out and acquire the goods that are available in that particular place. Like we're traveling through time, and every month, every yantif, every opportunity is literally a gift waiting for us to like gather what it has to offer. So the instruction, like when Adar comes, we should increase in joy. It's telling us how we get to mine the gifts of Adar, the energy, like the ability to see beyond the surface, the ability to cultivate our own holy doubt, the ability to find joy within ourselves from a sense of alignment, despite anything that we're dealt with in life. And we all need it. Life is hard.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, life is hard, especially now, especially for
Yeah.
Jews.
Yeah.
I always think of it, all these, I love learning about Rosh Chodesh, and every time I learn a month and deep dive into it, I like it even more. And I find that what it talks about monthly is what's actually coming up in my life. And when I have my circles, it feels like everyone's feeling that. And we really believe that energetically, and this is universally not just Jewish theme, but energetically things arise together, right? Oh, I'm going through this. You're feeling this, I'm feeling this. And so I always thought about it as I can take the energies of the month and use it to help me move through the month. And the way you're saying it, it's almost like I'm flipping this now. And it's like, God is giving me this. Like it's a take versus receive. Go and cut. God is literally placing these energies on us to move through the month. And that's different.
Yeah.
That's like almost like a gift opposed to something I can tap into, because when you tap into or when you take, you could also not take and you cannot tap into. And the way I'm understanding it now from you is that whether you take it or not, it's on you. It's there.
Yeah.
Collectively, we have it
Yeah.
and
And I
it's
think,
working for us.
yeah, depending on our own like level of consciousness is how consciously we'll interact with what we're
Right.
receiving. So that's where like how we show up. It's a difference. It's all about consciousness, but it's happening anyway. Yeah.
Wow.
There is another whole dimension in Adar that is another thing that makes me love it so much. And that is the aspect of the feminine, right? Like Purim is the
I didn't
story.
get to this part of the book, so I'm really
Oh,
excited.
actually, so it's part of the structure of Hashem's name, but it shows up in a million ways.
Okay.
And I saw a meme, like someone posted something on Facebook, and I'll quote him because I've never seen it before. I think his name is Shirley Brooker. Someone shared this line that he wrote, which was in Elul, in the month of Elul, the king is in the fields.
Okay.
And in the month of Adar, the queen is in the palace.
Oh, I never heard that.
I
That's
read
so
this and
good.
it blew my mind, and I'll explain to you why.
Explain.
It fits in with so many dimensions of what Adar is.
Okay.
So first of all, what I briefly mentioned before, how like Adar is the last month in the cycle of
Right.
months, right? It's like the maturity, it's the arrival. And the way that the mystics describe the energy of the two halves of the year, the first 6 months from Nisan to Elul, and the last 6 months from Tishrei to Adar, are two, they're like a yin and a yang, like
Okay.
two opposite energies. So the first 6 months, the energy is God giving to us. So there is a concentrated amount of revelation in the sense that Pesach and Shavuos, the Passover and the celebration of receiving the Torah, they are the two highest moments of revelation in our history, right? They're like when God was like giving us a ton of miracles, everything with a very open hand, a very free hand. It was the greatest levels of revelation that anybody's ever experienced in human history. It was like just a very huge flow. It's described as like a huge flow from above.
Mm.
Like God's initiating all this wonder, all this blessing, all this miracle. He's taking us out of Egypt. He's rescuing us with an open hand, and then he's giving us the Torah. And it's like this enormous outpouring from Hashem. But within that journey, it's like the birth of our nation, right? Pesach is when we were born as a people. We left Egypt and became our own people. And we were starting to grow up, right? We're starting to evolve
Okay.
as a people. And at the very end of this period of 6 months, Hashem is okay. I've given you everything and I'm showing up. This is my own thought, but this is what
Okay.
it
This is what
I'm
it's supposed to
showing
be.
up to you. I'm the king and I'm showing up to you on your terms in the field. Like I'm coming out to you the closest you can possibly get. Like we're finishing this period of like me doing everything for you to like me saying, okay, I'm here, come. And then the response to that is the second half of the year, the next
Yeah.
months, which starts with Tishrei. It starts with Rosh Hashanah. It starts with us crowning God as king. And the second half is considered an arousal from below. It's like an initiation from us toward Hashem. And so what you have is like right after Tishrei, even though that's like a very high point of the year, it you don't have any other biblical holidays anymore,
Okay.
right? You have Hanukkah, it gets really dark, it's winter, it's cold. You have Purim, but they're both holidays that were added afterwards. They're not really considered part of the original high holidays or the three pilgrimages, right? The Shalosh Regalim.
Yeah.
And it's about us. Like the first half is like God turning toward us, and the second half is about us turning towards God. And Elul and Adar are the two last months. So like the mirror of Elul, of God
Mm.
showing up and saying, I'm coming to the field, is us finally coming into our power at the end
Oh
of the period
my
of 6 months
goodness.
and saying, we are the queen. We are your queen, God, right? You are our king. We are your queen. We are arriving in the palace. We're ready
Wow.
to be here with you. And what is so wild about this is that it literally says in the actual Megillah that on Purim, the Jews finally accepted what they received earlier, referring to Shavuos, referring to when they received the Torah. And the reference is about the fact that when we received the Torah, we were compelled to accept because the level of revelation was so enormous we lost our ability to choose anything but
Mhm.
was coming. So the description is it says that God held a mountain over us and said,
Right. There's
say
not
yes.
really a choice.
You're right. And I think more than being forced, it was a sense of we're so dependent on God. And the level of revelation was so enormous that there was no space in my mind and my heart to even consider anything else. It was like,
Right.
of course, but that's not free choice.
Right.
And the point of the mystics talk about the point of all of this, the point of the reason why we exist, the point of all of creation, the point of everything is because Hashem wanted a relationship with us. And so Purim is this moment where it says that the Jews during the story of Purim, they actually consciously chose. Like the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, the Holy Temple was gone. They didn't have the old style revelation
Right.
anymore. They were living in exile. They were living in Persia. They weren't connected to any of the obvious holy things. And they finally had enough space to like have real freedom.
Mm.
And God, we choose you. And that is what happens on Purim. Like it's us finally arriving from a place of genuine maturity. We've differentiated enough. We've had enough space to figure out who I am and that I have the ability to choose freely. I can say no, and I am saying yes. And so it just feels like such a gorgeous,
So beautiful.
like wholesome, like arrival, like real.
Like the circle closing, like with the heart.
Yeah.
The circle closing and it that's so beautiful. I've never heard that before and it makes so much sense. And it's also so interesting that it comes through the woman. Like it comes through Esther.
It's
The
the rise of the feminine.
it is really the rise of the feminine. And I think it feels like in this moment the feminine is having a moment. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And there's a way to step into it in holiness and
It
that's
is
really
holy.
powerful. It is holy. Yes,
It
it
is
is
holy.
holy.
I realize that not a lot of people know this, but the Lubavitch Rebbe said about the women's lib movement was
Yeah,
what it was called in the 60s, that it's a sign of Mashiach.
that's incredible.
Like we need to take that seriously. Like we don't
Yeah.
need to be afraid of feminism. We
No,
actually know what it is better than feminists
correct.
do, because where are they supposed to know what it is? Like women never had power for all of human history. So we're trying to find our power. And the fact that we're fumbling around and getting sidetracked on the way, of course, we don't know exactly what we're doing because how on earth are we supposed to know? The wild thing is that in the Jewish tradition, in Jewish mysticism, in Hasidic mysticism, there are enormous amounts of guidance to what the truth of feminine energy is. And so this rise of the feminine is a natural progression of the development of human history, of the maturity of
Mm.
humanity, of us elevating our consciousness to really meet God. And we don't have to be afraid of it. We need to find our truth and
I feel
lend
like
our
we need to actually tap into it more.
yes,
And
yes,
and in that way, like we'll discover what it is, but the only way to discover that and find the right path of it is to get into it.
yes.
I just started a podcast series on abundance manifestation that will
Wow.
be coming out soon. And my first guest is Nechama Schusterman, who I'm sure you've heard about. And we just recorded it yesterday. And so much of our conversation is about Geula, the redemption times, and the feminine. And what does that actually mean in Jewish mysticism? And how do you do it, which is actually masculine doing things? And it's really how do you
Body it.
be it? How do you embody it? How you and thinking about the story of Purim, Esther was it. Esther was it. If we look about what we know about her, she was feminine. She was the queen, and a queen just is.
Yeah.
And then everything magical kind of happens around her.
Yeah.
Just
Her.
through her. I like,
Yeah.
yes, through her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, Hannah, that's so beautiful. This is so incredible.
It's,
You
I mean,
know,
it is so incredible.
it
There's like
is.
so much here. And
There's so much
when you
here.
get into it, like you start feeling it and you start living with it and your own consciousness like
Yeah.
elevates with
And I
it.
love, besides the fact that you gave us the information of the month, there's so much that you gave us in this last hour that people can do. For me, it's always or be or embody. Like, what does that mean that you can tap into the energies? You gave it play, wonder, holy Dell. There's so much that you can work with here, sitting in your feminine, being the queen, meeting God, right? That's big. These are big themes that we can tap into. And for me, I would say the biggest takeaway is that holy doubt. Like I just got so excited about that because it feels so heavy for me to be the warrior against all these people who essentially don't even care. Like, why are we fighting with them? And no, we're not supposed to be. We're supposed to be
We need to
getting
rise
rid of
our
our,
own power.
yeah.
Like the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, like one small candle gets rid of a lot of darkness. Like we
Yeah.
see the darkness and we think of it as a thing that we have to fight. It's not a thing. We don't have to pay so much attention. We have to get really connected with our own light. And
We just have to light our own candle.
yeah, yeah, and nurture it, feed it, let it shine, let your fire blaze, and everything else just.
Beautiful. Oh, I really want to come to your circles in London.
No, I would love it. I would
Ah, I'll
love
make
it.
it. I'll make it. It's a desire. It's a desire. Hannah, thank you so much. This is,
Thanks for having me.
wow, this was like so incredible. I'm so joyful from it. This is how we tap into the joy. Do things that feed your soul. This definitely did, and I appreciate it. And I'm so excited to put this out. It'll be out in a couple days so people can listen to it throughout this month again and again and just like tap into all of the goodness. So I appreciate you, and everyone who listens is so appreciative as well. Thank you so much.
Opportunity.
Please subscribe to Dream Detour on iTunes to stay up to date. And if you like what you heard, please leave a review. You can find me on Instagram at aura.schwartz. That's aura.schwartz, or stay in touch by emailing me at dreamdetourpodcast@gmail.com.